here's part of the scam in Canada, the hate scam in Canada. So you got an organization called Canadian Anti-Hate Network. They're $200,000 in April 1st, 2024. They got 440,000 December 1st, 2023, 268,000 in 2020. So lots of money for them. Creating an ethical framework for research on far-right organizing in Canada. By the way, there's no ethical framework for researching far-left organizing in Canada, like Revolutionary Communists, Antifa, any of that. Apparently, they're fine with that. These are propagandists. These are purely partisan left-wing propagandists funded by the government, funded by Trudeau. And it's useful for him to do that. Here's an article from the CBC. This was during the Freedom Convoy. For many, freedom is a malleable term, one that's open to interpretation. That flexibility, in part, has fueled its growth among certain groups, says Barbara Perry, director of the Centre on Hate, Bias and Extremism at the Oshawa-based Ontario Tech University. By the way, they're getting some money too, and we'll get to that. It is a term that has resonated. You can define it and understand it and sort of manipulate it in a way that makes sense to you and is useful to you, depending on your perspective. Really, I never really thought of it that way. It seemed to be fairly obvious what it means. Certainly, in the context of government. It is also a term that has thrived among far-right groups. Oh, no! Those far-right people want freedom, apparently, said Perry, one of a number of experts who say the presence of far-right groups in Canada is growing. Ooh, so scary. Far-right, those far-right people who want freedom and less government control, and like they don't want censorship. And want like government transparency. Though, the far right. Let's see. Center on Bias, State and Extremism. So Ontario Tech University. Let's see. University of Ontario Institute of Technology. That is the same institution. $135,000 2021, talking about right-wing extremism. Brrr. $366,000 2018, same place, updating the environmental scan of right-wing extremism in Canada. Brrr. University of Ontario Institute of Technology, $396,000 2018, updating the environmental scan of right-wing extremism. Brrr. 2018, $396,000, same. $2.18 million. University of Ontario Institute of Technology. Right-wing extremism in Canada, conceptualizing the movement. This is a lot of money. That's 2023. Trudeau got real generous there. Let's see, there's Dr. Barbara Perry, handling hateful conduct in the Canadian Air Force, scoping the policy environment. She got $50,000 right there, 2020. Isn't that nice? So let's go back here again. So the Oshawa-based Ontario Tech University, that's just a rebranding. That's the same place. So this term freedom, we're informed by the people being paid by Trudeau, by the Trudeau government. We're informed that the word freedom has thrived among far-right groups because the whole concept of freedom is far right. Doesn't make a lot of sense, right? Because you want freedom from an oppressive government, right? Freedom from a government that's punishing dissent, that's sort of censoring you. It doesn't really. I mean, if that's far right, it almost feels like these people are just propagandists. Their only purpose is to propagandize for partisan politics. Evan Balgord, executive director of the Canadian Anti-Hate Network. And who were they again? They were these guys that have been getting quite a lot of money from the government, from Trudeau, right? And their job is to research the far right in Canada, right? So what does he say? He says the way many protesters frame their calls for freedom renders the word meaningless. And what they're really asking for is a shift in government policy that could potentially have a negative impact on others, because freedom's bad. When they're yelling they care so much about their freedom, they're taking freedoms away from other people who don't have the same kind of agency and choice that they do. It seems like he's kind of against freedom. These people are ideologues. They're lunatics. Okay. They are lunatics. They're trying to cast the word freedom as far right. This is upside down, backwards world. This is lunatic world. This is madness, right? These are the kind of ideas you can only learn at a modern university. Totally disconnected from reality, transparently just propagandistic, transparently just an attempt to mislead the public, to lead them down the primrose path towards actual authoritarianism, actual fascism, the kind of fascism that they like. So, what do we see here? You've got the CBC, which is funded by the Trudeau government to the tune of $1.4 billion a year. You have these organizations like the Institute of Technology getting big money from the government. You've got activist organizations like the Canadian Anti-Hate Network getting lots of money from the government, all funded by the government. And what do we see? A nice, happy little circle here. So Trudeau hated the Freedom Convoy. He hated the protesters in Ottawa. And so what did CBC do, who is funded by him? And who knows, they will be defunded if the Conservatives win. So what do? They decide, CBC decides to obviously smear the protesters, right? By saying the word freedom, fight for freedom on the signs, right? Freedom, freedom, freedom. By deciding to gaslight the public on the word freedom and how it's being used. And it's not being used the way they say it is, it's a different way. And how do they do that? Well, they can call up these people who have gotten funding from Trudeau, like the Canadian Anti-Hate Network. And they can ask them, hey, are these people all racist or something? And are they far right? And freedom is like far right, right? And they will reliably tell them, absolutely. And here's my idiotic reason justifying that. And the Ontario Institute of Technology, exact same thing. It's a circle jerk. This is a scam. This is how you fix it, right? This is how you fix the message. This is how you control narrative. This is totally corrupt. They exist. This funding exists. The Canadian Anti-Hate Network exists to perpetuate the lies of the Liberal Party and the Liberal Party funded media. That's how corrupt this is. That's how gross this is. You see how it's done? This is how the sausage gets made. This is how the woke sausage gets made. By the way, I typed in here under the search right wing. So you get all of this, right? Lots of right wing extremism, right wing hate, right wing extremism, just tons of it. Right wing extremism, right wing extremism, right wing extremism. Then I decided to do an experiment and I typed in left wing. 0 records. That's right. Antifa has never done anything wrong. No far leftist has ever done anything wrong. All those mobs down the streets, protesting against like Israel, right? None of them have done anything. They're all just fine. Whoever shot at that Jewish girls' school in Toronto, I guess it's not worth studying left-wing violence, is it? What about all the people who burned down all those churches? I feel like they probably weren't over 100. I think it's up to about 120 churches now burned down in Canada. I'm guessing that's not right-wing extremism. I'm guessing that's left-wing. Really? Just no interest in that at all. Obviously not. I mean, it's actually comical. Found 0 records. How do you know it's all bullshit? It's all a scam. It's all just an attempt to misinform the public, to propagandize the public, to socially engineer the public. This is how you know. And it couldn't be more clear, could it? Found 0 records. 0. This isn't even left-wing extremism I typed in. I just typed in left-wing. Here, I just typed in right-wing. And it's just this huge cornucopia of right-wing this, right-wing that, right-wing, scary, scary, scary. Left-wing, found 0 records. 0 records. This is obscene. It couldn't be any more clear what a giant scam this is. What an enormous, cynical, incredibly expensive crime against the Canadian people this is. What a crime against Canada's conscience this is. This is pure social engineering. It's laid out bare. right? We didn't even need Elon Musk. I didn't need Elon Musk to find all this stuff, right? It's actually just available. It's all in plain sight. Makes you wonder, what's the media doing? Oh, yeah, the media is getting paid by Trudeau. So there we have it. That's my own personal little Canada Doge. What do you guys think? Anyway, that's all I'm going to say about that. Please like, share, and subscribe. Subscribing really helps me out. I thank you for that. I will see you next time.